welcome to the Webcast for Monday, July 20th. I'm South Ops meteorologist Jonathan O'Brien. We're starting the week off with quite a bit of cloud cover, and it's actually a two-pronged attack of clouds today. We have a pretty robust wave of monsoonal moisture pushing out of the California deserts, as well as a thick band of clouds along the central coast and extending into northern California, that of which is associated with Tropical Storm Elita. This squeeze play is going to keep partly to mostly cloudy skies in place through the day, though it will remain mostly mid- and high-level clouds with some filtered sunshine getting through as well. We still have high-pressure influences in place over us, and that's going to keep temperatures on the warm side today. However, it will only be seasonable warmth, and in most cases a little cooler than the past couple of days thanks to the cloud cover. And it is possible that some areas may underperform on temperatures today due to the cloudiness. We will again be watching thunderstorm potential today and really all throughout this week. As we've mostly been seeing so far this monsoon season, thunderstorm activity this week will be heavily concentrated along and east of the Sierra Crest in central California and south and east of I-15 in southern California. Today and tonight may be a little bit of an exception to that rule thanks to the more organized disturbance coming out of the deserts and the added moisture around from Elita. For today and tonight, isolated activity could extend west of I-15 into more of SoCal, and west of the Sierra Crest, and even maybe into the San Joaquin Valley foothills. However, any activity in those areas will be limited and likely more in the way of showers and sprinkles as opposed to thunderstorms. Still, a couple of rogue lightning strikes cannot be ruled out. Otherwise, high-pressure influences will dominate this week, with the center of the high generally fluctuating between the Great Basin and Desert Southwest. The high pressure looks to become a little stronger and closer to our region by late in the week, which will encourage some additional warming as a pretty hot pattern starts to develop. And so temperatures will generally be on a slow warming trend this week. Here's a look at Wednesday's forecast highs, with most areas trending a little above seasonal averages. And here are the highs by Thursday, with 80s to low 90s across the lower mountains, mid-90s to 105 in the valleys, 105 to 110 in the high desert, and 105 to 115 in the low desert. From there, we will probably more or less level out through the end of the week, though there are some models that indicate potential for even higher temperatures by Sunday or early next week. In terms of humidities, they remain somewhat elevated due to all of this monsoonal moisture we have around. Minimum RH values should generally remain in the 15 to 30% range for most of this week, with fair to good recoveries in most areas. Humidity may slowly trend downwards late in the week as that high pressure gets a little stronger. And for the winds, they will be fairly light overall, with local and terrain winds dominating in most cases, and some locally breezy conditions through the gaps and passes. Gusty outflow winds will also be possible near any thunderstorms. And speaking of thunderstorms, again, they will remain a daily or near-daily threat this week, but predominantly confined to the mountain and desert areas discussed earlier. Storms should be wet and slow-moving, and in fact there are flood watches in effect across the eastern Sierra, so be aware of the potential for locally heavy rainfall and flash flooding in that area over the next couple of days. Dead fuel moistures will mostly be on slow falling trends this week outside of the deserts and eastern Sierra. Here's a look at the 100-hour dead fuel moisture trend and forecast for South Ops as a whole. This pattern will also encourage slow but steady declines in live fuel moistures, which are at or approaching critical levels in some areas but remain safely above in others. Overall, flammability is generally on an upward trend across the region, outside of the localized areas that have received beneficial moisture. And even though this week's weather pattern is not especially concerning due to the elevated humidities, this warm pattern can still set the stage for more significant fire potential in a drier or windier pattern down the road, unless more widespread moisture arrives first. So in terms of our fire potential, we'll keep it in the moderate range and a little below normal for this time of year over the next couple of days, with the elevated humidities and fair to good recoveries the primary limiting factors on more significant potential. However, the warm conditions will still encourage steady light to moderate initial attack, And fire potential will likely trend upwards at least a little bit as the week goes on, thanks to the warming trend and potentially some drying as well. So despite the lack of any critical conditions, there will certainly still be good potential for active burning conditions on any well-aligned starts. That's it for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. The next one will be on Tuesday, July 21st.